Hey, I'm David Miller. Welcome to my channel. And today we're going to take a look at the film The Odyssey. You know, there are directors who take on projects, and you immediately understand. This is either a triumph or a catastrophe. Christopher Nolan directing Homer's Odyssey. This is exactly that kind of case. And I'll say it right away. This is a film that makes you remember why you fell in love with the big screen in the first place. But is the modern viewer ready for such a journey? So let's break down what we're dealing with here. The Odyssey is a massive adaptation of Homer's ancient Greek poem, which Christopher Nolan directed for Universal Pictures. The film hits U.S. theaters on July 17, 2025, and the studio is clearly banking on a summer blockbuster with aspirations for something greater. The film is produced by Nolan himself, along with Emma Thomas, their proven partnership that gave us Oppenheimer, Interstellar, and Dunkirk. In the leading roles, Matt Damon as Odysseus, Anne Hathaway as Penelope, Zendaya in the role of the goddess Athena, Tom Holland plays Telemachus, and Robert Pattinson appears as the god Poseidon. Special mention goes to Charlize Theron as Circe and Lupita Nyong'o as Calypso. The cast, frankly speaking, is stellar, and the ambitions match accordingly. Nolan shot the film on IMAX film, which in itself is a technical feat for a project of this scale. Now for a bit of personal context. I've been waiting for this film since the moment the first rumors about the project appeared. You see, I grew up on the Odyssey. I read it back in school, then reread it in college, watched all the adaptations from the television version with Armand Assante to more modern interpretations. And every time I thought, why can't anyone do this truly on a grand scale? When I found out that Nolan was taking on this material, I had two feelings simultaneously. First, absolute excitement. Second, slight fear. Because ruining the Odyssey is very easy. Sliding into pomposity, drowning in special effects, losing the human story behind divine intrigues. I watched the film on a big IMAX screen, as the director intended. And you know what? For the first 20 minutes or so, I simply forgot to breathe. The plot of the film follows Odysseus, king of Ithaca, who after 10 years of the Trojan War is trying to return home. Sounds simple, right? But the devil, as always, is in the details. Odysseus isn't just a warrior yearning to see his native shores. This is a man broken by war, carrying the weight of decisions that cost his comrades their lives. Matt Damon plays him not as a hero in the classical sense, rather as a man who is no longer sure whether he even deserves to return. He's opposed by Poseidon, and here Pattinson creates a truly terrifying image of a deity for whom human life means nothing. But the real conflict runs deeper. Odysseus must not just sail to Ithaca. He must understand whether the man Penelope is waiting for still exists, or whether war has turned him into someone else. In parallel, we see the storyline of Telemachus, a young man who grew up without a father and must now decide whether to search for him or accept the loss. And Penelope, who for 20 years has been holding the line against suitors pillaging her home. 3 storylines, 3 journeys, 3 kinds of loneliness. Nolan weaves them together with the precision we saw in Dunkirk. Different temporal streams that converge in the finale. My main thesis is this. Nolan's The Odyssey is a rare case where a blockbuster isn't afraid to be slow, contemplative, and philosophically loaded. The film works simultaneously as a visual feast and as a deep meditation on the cost of returning. What worked best? The humanity amid the epic. What gets in the way? At times, the director gets so caught up in the scale that he loses emotional focus. But more on that a bit later. Let's talk about the screenplay and pacing. Nolan wrote the screenplay himself, and you can feel it. He doesn't try to cram the entire poem into 3 hours of screen time. Instead, he selects key episodes and connects them thematically. The encounter with the Cyclops Polyphemus, the island of Circe, the descent into the realm of the dead, Scylla and Charybdis. It's all there, but presented not as a series of adventures, but as stations on the hero's inner journey. The pacing of the film is unusual. Nolan allows scenes to breathe. There are long dialogues. There are moments when the camera simply looks at the sea and you hear only the waves and Hans Zimmer's music. For some, this will be a meditative experience. For others, a test of patience. I personally believe this is a bold choice. In an era when blockbusters are afraid of silence, Nolan makes silence part of the narrative. The characters here are the film's main victory. Matt Damon in the role of Odysseus surprised me. I'm used to seeing him in more straightforward roles. But here, he creates the image of a man who is constantly thinking 3 moves ahead, and at the same time is infinitely tired of it. There's a scene where he simply sits on the shore and looks at the horizon. Not a word of dialogue, only Damon's face. And you can read on it all 10 years of war and all the years of wandering. Anne Hathaway received perhaps the most difficult task, to make Penelope an active heroine, not just a waiting wife. And she handles it brilliantly. Her Penelope is a strategist, a politician, a woman waging her own war. The scenes with the suitors are more tense than many action sequences. Tom Holland in the role of Telemachus is an interesting choice. He brings vulnerability and youthful hot-headedness that contrasts with the weary wisdom of the father. Their relationship is the heart of the final act, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I'll say, it works. Zendaya as Athena, a deity that truly feels like something non-human. She plays the goddess not as a superhuman, but as a being with an entirely different value system. It's frightening and fascinating at the same time. The theme of the film, and here Nolan goes deeper than a simple retelling of the myth. The Odyssey is a meditation on what we lose when we go to war. And I'm not talking about years or health. Odysseus lost his former self, and the entire film is an attempt to understand whether it's possible to return not just geographically, but internally. Is it possible to become a husband and father again after you've seen and done what Odysseus did? The parallel with veterans of modern wars is obvious, but Nolan doesn't beat you over the head with it. He allows the viewer to draw these lines themselves. The second layer is the relationship with time. 20 years of absence. Penelope has aged. Telemachus has grown up. Ithaca has changed. Odysseus returns to a place he remembers, but that place no longer exists. And the people he loved, they're different people now. Nolan, the master of nonlinear time, uses this brilliantly. The tone of the film is serious, but not grim. There's humor here, dry, bitter humor of survivors. There are moments of beauty that take your breath away. There's horror. The scene with Scylla, I'm sure, will go down in history as one of the scariest in Nolan's career. The balance is maintained remarkably well. The film doesn't slide into pompous tragedy or into an adventure theme park ride. Cinematic language and direction. This is where Nolan shows why he's one of the best working directors. The use of the IMAX format here isn't just a technical trick. It's a narrative tool. The sea scenes are shot with such a sense of scale that you physically feel the insignificance of man before the elements. The editing between the 3 timelines, Odysseus at sea, Penelope on Ithaca, Telemachus on his journey, creates a rhythm similar to breathing. Inhale, we're with Odysseus in the storm. Exhale, Penelope is unraveling her weaving at night. Inhale again. Telemachus stands before a choice. The cinematography by Hoyte van Hoytema deserves separate discussion. He shot Interstellar and Dunkirk for Nolan, and here he's outdone himself. There's a shot, I can't forget it, where Odysseus's ship is seen from above, a tiny speck on the infinite blue. And then the camera slowly descends, and we find ourselves on the deck, among the people. This transition from the epic to the intimate is a visual metaphor for the entire film. Hans Zimmer's music. I've criticized Zimmer many times for being repetitive, but here he's done something different. The score of the Odyssey combines orchestral power with something ancient, sounds that are associated with ancient Greece, but not in an on-the-nose, sword and sandal style. There's a theme of return that repeats in different variations, first heroic, then sorrowful, then almost ghostly. When it plays in the finale, but I won't spoil it. The sound design also deserves mention. The sea here is a full-fledged character, and the sound makes it alive. The creaking of the ship, the pounding of waves, the cries of seagulls, the silence before the storm. All of this creates an immersion that's impossible to reproduce on a home system. Comparisons suggest themselves naturally. The Odyssey is, of course, a conversation with Scott's Gladiator, with Peterson's Troy. But in spirit, the film is closer to Iñárritu's The Revenant. The same obsession with nature as a force that surpasses man, the same slow journey toward an impossible goal. One can also recall Nolan's own Interstellar. There, too, a father was trying to return to his children. There, too, time was the enemy. The Odyssey is as if Nolan took the same theme and transported it 3,000 years back. Now about how the film works for different audiences. Nolan fans will get everything they love: scale, nonlinear storytelling, philosophical depth, technical innovation. But here's what's interesting. The film can also hook those who usually avoid blockbusters. There's something to discuss after the screening. I wouldn't be surprised if in theater lobbies people start arguing about whether Odysseus was a hero or a tormentor of his men, about whether Penelope truly forgave him, about what it means to come home. For family viewing, that's a complicated question. The film is intense in places. Not in terms of blood. Nolan, as always, is elegant in depicting violence, but in terms of emotional intensity. Teenagers over 15, I think, will find it interesting. Younger, depends on the child. For mythology enthusiasts, this is a gift. Nolan respects the source material, but doesn't slave to it. He takes the freedom of interpretation, but never betrays the spirit of the poem. Now about the weak spots, because they exist. The main complaint: the second act sags. There's a feeling that Nolan wanted to show too many mythological episodes and didn't find the balance everywhere. The episode with the Laestrygonians, for example, feels like an insert. It's visually impressive, but adds nothing to the hero's journey. Second, some secondary characters aren't developed enough. Odysseus's companions remain functions, not people. When they die, and they do die, that's not a spoiler, that's Homer, you don't feel the loss as acutely as you could. Third, and this is subjective, the finale felt slightly rushed to me after all the preceding grandeur. Although perhaps this is an intentional choice. But overall, these shortcomings don't destroy the film. They're annoying, like small scratches on a beautiful vase, but the vase remains beautiful. So, my recommendation. The Odyssey is a film I recommend watching in the theater and on the biggest screen you can find. IMAX is ideal. It's not just about the visual scale. It's about the immersion that's impossible to reproduce at home. The sea should surround you. The music should resonate in your chest. The silence between dialogues should be real, not interrupted by phone notifications. Who is it for? Those who love cinema that makes you think, but isn't pretentious. Those who appreciate visual beauty. Those who are ready for a 3-hour journey without quick dopamine hits every 5 minutes. Fans of Greek mythology who want to see it come alive. People who miss epics in the classical sense. Who is it not for? Those expecting an action theme park ride in the style of Clash of the Titans. Those for whom 3 hours of runtime feels like a trial. Those who don't like non-linear storytelling, it will irritate you here. This isn't Pirates of the Caribbean. This is serious cinema in a blockbuster wrapper. For me personally, The Odyssey is one of the main films of the year. Not perfect, no, but ambitious, beautiful, intelligent, and emotionally honest. Nolan has once again proven that big cinema can be both spectacular and profound. Thanks for watching to the end. Write in the comments, are you planning to see it? Have you read Homer's Odyssey? What's your favorite adaptation of Greek myths? I'm genuinely interested in your opinion. If the video was helpful, a like and subscribe will help the channel grow. See you in the next review.